just had the privilege of spending time with 4 of the victims and their family members. Met the grandmother whose daughter was holding a 6-year-old, lost their life at a festival that all of us who grew up in the Bay Area know well. Went to Santa Clara University, it's down the road from here, been to that festival, and here we are again and again and again and again, an elected official, all political stripes, with their version, prayers, heart goes out, we need to do better as a country. And seemingly, for a lot of folks, they feel like nothing's changing. It's pablum. And I get that. I mean, the idea that a 12-year-old that I just met was shot in the leg, she was describing she was on a jumpy house at a garlic festival. And we just moved on with the morning news and the Rose Garden press conference, and I'm sure we'll hear a few things the next few nights from elected officials. And fundamentally, things are changing. So, people have versions of what the solutions are. I'm proud of this state for its leadership over half a century on gun safety. We've seen a significant decline in the gun murder rate in California compared to other states. But as you all know, it looks like this weapon was purchased out of state and brought into the state of California. These are weapons of war. I know some will suggest these are important tools for hunting. Someone who just got back from Montana and knows a lot of hunters. They're alternative means of hunting. These are weapons of war. They're weapons of mass destruction. Their purpose is to exact as much damage on human beings as possible. They have no place in our society, let alone in this country, let alone in this state. But the culture has to change. You can't just change gun laws. You got to change hearts and minds. There's also an ideology that's deeply at root here, and that didn't surprise me. You just almost could predict. Telling me a little bit more about this young man. I asked my staff, and immediately sent me to some of the postings that are now being made public. And it was the first week I was in office that I sat down with my emergency director, thinking we were going to talk about preparing for wildfires after the Camp and Woolsey fire. And he says, you know what you need to focus on? White supremacy. You need to focus on hate groups. God is my witness. That was the first meeting I had as governor, talking about emergency preparedness after those 2 horrific fires. That was the anxiety that the leadership of the state had. That needs to be called out clearly and convincingly, starting with the top. The President of the United States needs to call that out clearly and convincingly. Not just because of this incident, but because of what's going on in the United States. And so for all these reasons, I came here, connect with this issue, try to express my deepest regret and sympathies for the families impacted, the lives lost, but a deep desire for this country to exercise a new level of moral leadership, which is missing currently.
Quick question. When you meet with this 12-year-old, what words of comfort can you offer? What do you say?
She was comforting me. There was a 12-year-old shot who smiled when I walked into the room. I said, how are you smiling? You just were shot. She starts describing the courage as she was running away after she was shot and kept running. And here she is, comforting the governor. Yeah, wow. Met another young woman who was shot. She's going to have all kinds of surgeries and might have hit her lung. I don't want to get into the details. And she was there with her boyfriend and describing how he was running towards her and she was running away from the shooter. What courage. How about a grandmother who lost a 6-year-old grandson who's in the hands of her daughter, and courage to visit with me, to sit there, thank me for visiting her. Wow.
What did she have to
Those
say
are
to you?
extraordinary human beings. And by the way, those are the survivors. But you know what? Their lives are profoundly impacted. We talk about deaths in this country. We don't talk about survivors in this country and the impact that it has. I met a woman whose husband was shot. She was shot. And I asked her if she had connected with her 3-year-old that was there on the scene. She says, I haven't yet. 3-year-old. And she talked about the courage of the 3-year-old, who all she wanted was to go with mommy and daddy when they got in ambulance.
It moves
This is
like-
America.
So
What
this
is
is
your-
heartbreaking. What would you say went wrong in this whole thing?
What
So
went
many
wrong? What's
things.
going wrong? It's slow motion mass murders that are happening all across the United States. There's a culture of gun violence and machismo. I mean, did anyone ask, was this a man or a boy? You didn't have to. Remember all the punditry, they just assumed it. It was fascinating last night.
Governor, you say you gave comfort to the families.
I didn't.
What-
They gave comfort to me.
What do you
It's the
say to
opposite.
these families and the people out there?
This is, I talked about being inarticulate by saying I'm inarticulate. Nothing I could say can change what's happened. I don't know what I can possibly say to make you feel better, except God bless you, and I'm so sorry. Not only what's happened to you, what's happening in this country, in this state, in this nation of ours. And I don't know, we're here for you. Look, I just, I've been doing this 20 years, and it's just sickening. I don't think there's anything more frustrating than people watching the nightly news and seeing someone like me come out and expressing yet again. And then, 3 days from now, we'll zig and zag on a new tweet and some other new crisis. And, we'll be off to the normalization that occurs every single night in the emergency room here, which is not mass murders, but a typical night in Santa Clara County. And we've just accepted it. We've all just grown to accept it. And we have leadership today that just turns a blind eye to this and won't do a damn thing to address these issues. California's doing its part. But Jesus, these guys, the folks in the White House have been supporting the kind of policies to roll back the work we're doing in states like ours, to get rid of large capacity magazines, to address the issues that we're trying to advance on background checks on ammunition. And we can only do it for our state, and then we got to fight in the courts, and we got to fight these organized national rifles. But then you got an entire party, it seems, completely bankrupt, with no capacity. Now, and don't claim to be compassionate if you're participating complicitly in the world you're living in. Society becomes how we behave. The lack of resolve, it's just an outrage. And I can't put borders up, speaking of borders, in a neighboring state where you can buy this damn stuff legally. How the hell is that possible? And I have no problem with the Second Amendment. You have a right to bear arms, but not weapons of goddamn mass destruction. And you talk to any nurse here, Democrat, Republican nurses, they're like, man, are you guys asleep at the wheel? What we see every single damn night. Do you have a clue the toll this takes on the human body? Give me a break. You need these damn things for hunting. Give me a break.
Do you have any threads of optimism?
Yeah, because we're not giving up. We're California. We're better than this. I'm also in a state where 27% of us are foreign born. That's America's coming attraction. And for all the hatred and the vitriol and white supremacy out there and this notion of superiority, we'll grow out of that as a nation. But we'll have to go through this, and we got to educate a generation after generation that gets caught up in this vortex of hate. And by the way, vortex of hate is very familiar to folks out here in California. So we had it in the 90s. Hell, we had it in the 1890s. Chinese Exclusion Act. Where'd that come from? California. But we worked through it. We'll work through this. But as long as we're vigilant and we call out those that are complicit, we call out people that are sitting on the sidelines, we call out people that are excusing themselves from entering deeply in this debate and getting involved in this as a cultural issue, not just a weapon issue, and it is, but it's also a culture issue. And call it out with clarity and conviction. That's called leadership. And leadership needs to be found everywhere. But there's two kinds: formal authority and moral authority. What's goddamn absent in this country right now is moral authority on these issues.
You mentioned California doing its part. Do you feel like more can be done when it comes to gun
Yeah,
rights?
always. We just passed laws to ban large capacity magazines. If the National Rifle Association sued, would have already gone into effect. We just passed a law that allows for the first state in American history to require background checks on ammunition purchases. This guy may have bought the gun in Vegas or wherever. I don't know, Nevada, forgive me. I don't know where he bought the ammunition. Would have required a background check? No. Maybe he would have passed. I don't know. But it's a second capacity tier to be able to review and scrutinize. And of course, these guys are suing.